We are live. All right, welcome everybody. We are live. This is the Wednesday live stream we do every Wednesday with Future Aza, Brian White, with Nick Gibbs of Investing Against the Grain. And today we have a special guest, Xander Sky. We're talking about Tesla stock. It's currently at exactly $200 today. Some people in this panel are going to say that they think stocks are going to go up to $300. What's going to happen to it in the next several months? What's going to happen to the macro? Let's kick it off to you, Nick. You're the one thinking that there might be some changes to the stock as we head towards 1010 and with the macro environment. What's your thinking?
Yeah, my short-term thinking is that we're gonna probably run up 220 to 260 going into 1010 would be my guess. And it's a guess. I don't really know. Xander might be able to tell you what the charts are saying, but the reason I think that is because that's what we did last time. And the only reason we sold off was when we found out that A8 was delayed. So my brain says, well, people got excited back then. They should be even more excited. And I think the other thing too is going into 1010, we will have delivery numbers on October 2nd. And so far, it looks like it's gonna be a banger of a quarter. So yeah, so just that's all. I mean, again, I'm more so when it comes to Tesla thinking long term. But if you want short term, what I think is gonna happen, it'll probably do that. And depending on how 1010 goes, we could be off to 300 or we could be back down to 200. Only time will tell.
Yeah, don't you need to have like some shocker, something that the market, the street, investors are not thinking about? And so do you think that the delivery numbers is going to be ahead of expectations? And do you think that 1010 is not already built in?
1010 is definitely not built in because we saw sell off when it got delayed. So, like, that's just very binary from that point of view. I don't think you need a shocker. I guess all right. So when you say shocker, what does that mean, right? That the aperture for what that could mean is different for everybody. I don't think we need any shocking thing we weren't expecting. We don't need a one more thing. All we need to know is what's the business model. Ooh. I see you, Brian. All we need, Herbert's gonna yell at you later. All we need is, in my opinion, to understand when this rollout's going to happen, how he sees it happening, when will it start. Just a little bit more on the business case, and then Wall Street can start modeling it. I mean, I think that's all we need: more concrete details, rather than what he said on the earnings call, which was, to Pierre's question, like, well, it'll just work. I think some meat on the bones, and I think that's all we need. That's it.
So
I'm convinced.
yeah, so I'm going to say that 300 is ambitious but not impossible. As always, I'm always saying this: you can have hype cycles, you can have doom cycles, but eventually the fundamentals are all that matter. And we're seeing, Sawyer just pointed out, 2 billion in revenue already from the Cybertruck, and we're just getting started. And that's just one line. We're seeing the Megapack in Shanghai, the Megafactory there, is going to begin ramping in a matter of months. That is pure cash. That is just endless money. So even without a hype cycle, we can still see an upside. But if AMD has had some troubles, Intel's had some massive missteps, Nvidia is way down from their all-time highs. What we're seeing is there may be a little bit of hesitation in the AI market, and it's a lot of times these money flows in pools, and if the money flows out of any of those companies, it's got to go somewhere. Not everyone is just going to stockpile cash, and that could lead to a move back into Tesla. And institutional investors are still underrepresented in Tesla. The pensions are underweight. The ETFs are underweight. If any of those start increasing their positions like we thought they would a year ago, we could have a pretty decent run up over a pretty short period of time. That's what I'm seeing.
I'd say you're muted, Herbert. So I'll just jump in here real quick. I'd say I would wait for the invites to go out before I pull any triggers. I think that would be a a good sign. And then by that point, we should have more economic data. And I think that right now you're seeing some fear in the market still. So I've built up some cash over the last few days. That's how I'm
Yeah.
playing it.
Isn't the general consensus? So when I interviewed Mark Newton, he's the kind of a technical analyst for Fundstrat. He was saying that there's just so many things going on, right? You got the macro that's still happening. There's still, I think I just took a look at the latest information here, and it looks like that they're now reducing it to maybe one rate cut this year. And then you got the election that's coming. So he's saying that the Tesla stock will probably be, kind of volatile, be flat, and then it'll go to all-time highs. All-time highs. This is over $414. He thinks by the first quarter of next year, and it'll start late after December. So we've got Xander Sky here. Xander is one of the few people that I know that has his fingers on the pulse of what's happening with the stock, particularly Tesla stock. You've been knocking it out of the park. You've been playing options in the last 90 days, and your success rate is unbelievable. Like 9 out of 10 of your calls, 9 out of 10 of your calls are winners. So you seem to kind of understand the ups and downs. Can you tell us why is the stock at $200? Kind of seems to be flat here, and what do you expect to happen in the next month or two?
Yeah, I won't.
Risky business, you degenerate gambler.
That's it. I won't tell a secret. The difference is I'm both buying and selling contracts, it's kind of insane that it's working so well. I've always, thought that 9 out of 10 contracts expire worthless when you're buying. But I've been kind of trading the direction of the market and playing it with a safety net and not being greedy. So, buying January and February contracts when we had that run up to 180 to 270. I missed a lot of that because I didn't believe it until we actually broke out. And then I played that over the last 90 days. But then on the way down, that's the other thing. Like yesterday's move was a 204 to 208 gap fill that I sold some shares up there in my business account, kind of waiting to see what happens with the war. And so just putting it all together with macro has really been the difference between how I used to trade and then for the last 100 days or so. It's incredible. I've posted about it on X. Like right now I'm I'm actually watching calls. You'll see me looking on the left. I called it this morning that I bet you, and Nick sees it. He's in my signal group now with options, and just calling for 200. And then I even made a joke how, what would be interesting is if they let it run back up, go over 202.50, which is a strike, and then just rug it. And you're seeing that. Look at the NVIDIA, look at the SPY. It's recovered, but the inverse, whatever the market, whatever everyone thinks is doing, seems to what happens with the options. But this is like we're talking about days. You zoom out and you look at the SPY, the S&P 500. We're good. Look at the daily chart. It's recovered off of the 510. It's back up to 540s, and it looks like it's heading up for back for 560s. But today's looks like an indecision candle, even though we had inline CPI numbers. So, but that's how I've kind of been playing it, both or all of them: buying calls, selling calls, buying puts, selling puts. But underlying, my long-term portfolio remains long. I don't try to time that. It's just it's too gambly.
Okay, and why is the stock at 200? And what do you expect to see in the next several months?
Next several months, I think like I said. I think once you have this, the invites go out. The market wants to buy Tesla. You could see it with the 200-day moving average. If you look at the move from the 200-day moving average, which was about 203 on August 5th, you had that was that Monday when you had the carry trade, and then the down to 182. Then you had like 5 or 6 days of trading inside that range, and then yesterday we broke out. Now, that is a very, very bullish sign. So if you can get macro support, you will have a pullback. Generally speaking, nothing goes straight up. It'll pull back. The decisions will be made by traders or investors. Whether, if there's bad macro data, you might have that sell-off. We didn't really get that. So today is going to be a testing of the paper hands. Pull back to 195 is kind of where I'm thinking the low would go. If you look at like the 2-hour chart, there's a lot of support there. And then if no wars and that kind of thing, I expect it to recover. But just in case, I've raised some cash and then closed out a bunch of positions in the long side, and just sit tight and wait for the market to tell me which way it's going to go. Instead of trying to predict, I'm trying to react.
What are you waiting for?
I just told you. I'm waiting for the market to give me a direction. Tell me that we're going to get above the 200-day moving average. The 50-day is sitting at,
which is what?
It's 203. So, but not just like we closed yesterday above it, but now we're going to pull back. That's very normal, very healthy. What does it do in the next couple of days? I'm glad to miss the beginning, but before I decide to go long, I want the market to pick a direction. Is the risk of recession off the table? It's not, right? There's going to be the Fed meeting with Jackson Hole. What comes out of there is important. Is the September cut going to happen? Those are, is this going to be a rate cut that occurs because of jobs data getting worse, meaning unemployment's going up, or is it going to be a cut that occurs because inflation's coming down? I think those are important things to consider.
I would have a question for the three of you, which is, do you think that unlike all of the previous big event days, AI days, autonomy days, battery days, that this will actually move the stock in either direction?
Yes.
No.
Depends what they present. So if you have lots of cars that Wall Street can model, besides just a taxi, an app, a vehicle, if production begins, and there's drone footage and whatever it is, you start seeing mules on the road. So I think it can. It's just the question of, can the Wall Street type model it into their spreadsheets? And then if that's the case and earnings start going up, it can all compound to tailwinds with the Fed.
No, it's a high bar,
lower.
right? It's a very, very high bar for a presentation, for a 10-10 presentation to move the needle. Most investors want to see actual earnings. They want to see actual revenue. They want to say, this is the date that I'm going to sell this car. And it's like a month from now. This is the date that we're going to launch Robotaxi. And you won't see the stock pump until the date that they actually launch it. That's what most investors I've been talking to say.
Don't
that's
agree.
The case. Okay.
I just don't agree by any means. There's nothing to tell you that has been true. So you're telling me we just went from 200 to 270? That was because we saw earnings of this?
And Elon's
No, that's a good
package.
argument. Yeah, that's a good argument.
That's almost a
because-
1/3 move.
Yeah. We were at 414 when the margins weren't, the expectation margin was 50%, but we certainly did not have the revenue and the sales and all that at that point. It's all about what you're expecting at this point, where you're at today. So,
yeah, I mean, the only company that's actually showing revenue on the bottom line is NVIDIA.
Right.
Everybody else is just on a hype cycle. That's it. So the question is, who's going to be the company to actually do something meaningful with AI? And again, I think it's pretty obvious it's only Tesla. No one else is even near there. So I don't think the bar is that high. Like, all they have to do is give a pretty good timeline, lay out what the model is. And ideally, to Xander's point, now that we're getting close to the end of the year, well, let's get some orders in for these new vehicles. Like, I think that's all you need. Like, I really don't think the bar is that high.
So you think on 1010 they're going to say we've got the new vehicles that's to be launched. You can put in your reservation today.
I hope so. Why not?
I don't think so.
My first answer to why not would be because that's premature and a terrible idea. But when has that ever stopped us before?
Wait, why is that a bad idea? If we're going to start manufacturing in the first quarter of 2025, why is it a bad idea? Someone who's going to buy a $25,000 vehicle, 26,000, throw on the credits on there, like they're a little different than someone's going to buy Model Y, Model 3.
I don't think we're going to see production start in Q1. I'm deeply skeptical of that for the dedicated robotaxi.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the next gen vehicles.
Oh, which do you mean the intermediate compact based on 3 and Y?
Correct.
Okay. Less crazy. If that's what's coming, then I could see reservations for that. But
No,
something
yeah,
wheelless, steering wheelless, I don't know.
I've been consistent with this. I think that the robo taxi will start to get sold and be in production at the end of 2025. Leading up to that, we'll get unsupervised FSD, and then at some point next year, before robotaxi without steering wheel comes out, we'll have our cars in the Airbnb model in the network, and there might be like another safety layer in between that where the driver still has to be there, for X amount of time. But I think we're headed there. I think we will have robotaxis out there before the dedicated robotaxi is out in production. I hope.
Yeah.
Can we just loop back real quick so I don't normally like to talk about this, but Xander's on and he is making me itch. I just want to agree with him. So I'll tell you right now, if you looked at my short-term portfolio, everything I have right now is essentially all sold puts. And that may sound directional, but it's actually not. The only things I have sold puts on right now are in Tesla and Nvidia, because those are two that I feel confident have upside bias. Nvidia because they have earnings coming up, so I'll be out of those before earnings, and Tesla because I do think we're going to start to run up going into 1010. I'll be out of those before 1010. Everything else I have are delta neutral. If that's too technical for you, don't worry about it. The two people who know what I'm talking about will enjoy this. But I'm delta neutral on Meta, and I'm delta neutral on Apple right now. So to Sanders' point, I'm also kind of just waiting for the market to pick a direction. And so there's no compelling event come out with Meta or Apple. So that's why I'm delta neutral on those.
Doesn't Apple have phones or something coming out in the 16?
Yeah, okay.
No,
But
Apple's
yes.
big news. Apple's big news is that they're going to be taking 30% of every transaction that goes through their platform, including for things like Patreon. So all the work that creators are doing to foster their communities is now 30% Apple's money. So that's crazy talk. I get it when it comes to the App Store because there's discoverability, there's promotion, and there's all these safeguards. But for Patreon, for subscription type things, all it is a payment processor, and they're taking 30%, which is brutal.
You mean you don't like the business partner that you have that you didn't know you have?
That I did not know I had. I was not aware that we were buddies. Look, when you like, YouTube takes 45% of your ad revenue, but they do that because they're the ones finding the advertisers, courting them, placing the ad. They're doing all that work. But for the Patreon, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me.
Sounds steep.
Herbert, where are you at with Tesla and the event? You've asked us these questions. What's your
Yeah.
finger in the wind saying?
I do think that I agree with Mark Newton. I just interviewed him, and he's saying that it's going to be flat and bouncing around where we're at right now, and nothing's going to happen until the new year. Basically,
Wait. You think we're going to be at 200 all the way up until New Year?
I'm not sure. I'm not saying that. I have no idea, right? I have zero idea. I'm just saying that the actual appetite for people to start investing in a growth company, a high beta company like Tesla, it's not going to happen until you've got kind of interest rates have been taken care of. You've got the election done. Then you've got Tesla a lot more clear about what their path is moving forward, which a lot of things are coming forward in the new year. I just don't think that 1010 which is an event situation, it's going to make the stock pop. And if it does, yeah, maybe 5-10%, but it's not like the big mover yet, right? I do think that as by 2025, you'll start seeing people realize what business Tesla's in at this point. And so I'm not expecting it to jump this year for a variety of reasons.
All right. Herbert the Bear.
I'm not a bear.
Interesting.
So
I'm not a bear.
if Q3 and Q4 earnings start going up, right? And EPS starts going up, the market will, maybe the first quarter they won't quite trust it, but the second quarter, if there's a path that can be, shown that interest rates are dropping, demand is going up on the car business. Before we talk about energy or next gen vehicle, the market, like, look through the worst of times. What is the multiple being put on their earnings? It's all about earnings, right? Wall Street doesn't care about our enthusiasm for robo taxis. They want to see that on the bottom line, right? Our buddy Christian used to always talk about it. It's got to be an earnings machine, right? Why does Nvidia get the credit that it gets? But the car market right now is under pressure. Look at what Jeff says about inventory, and I'm sure you guys do as well. But once that eases up and the economy starts humming in that department and inventories start going down, look at how it's sustained. It's sitting at 200. This is a nice middle point. So can it go up to 300? As Brian said, it's possible before the end of the year. Is it possible it goes down to 150? Yeah, if the economy gets under pressure right now and there's war, that's what I'm saying. I'm just sitting here waiting for a direction to be picked. I don't get excited about 205. I don't get sad about 195. All of this is just in line. I'm okay with it. But yeah, I would just focus on the numbers and wait for the market to tell us which direction that's going.
Okay, well, barring any additional war or massive impact, things are looking good, right? It looked like that inflation, just the numbers came out, right, today, that the PPI is pretty decent. And so now it's looking like that inflation is being put down. I just shared this, which is the Fed, the current estimate right now, consensus from the Fed projections is that one rate cut by the end of 2024. This has been reduced from what initially people thought, but it's still going to be, I think, 5% or something like that, where we're expecting it to do, and they're expecting to do more. The outlook is good. So currently things are looking like it's going to be straight, correct? So what needs to now happen for Tesla, right, is they have improving margins, recovering margins. They have, new sales that are coming out. They need to show the two more affordable vehicles. That needs to be shown. That needs to be planned. And when that happens, then the people who are looking at margin growth, they're going to feel very confident at this point. Okay, you got new vehicles coming in, right? You got the Cybertruck ramping, and it's going to be profitable by the end of this year. Then when that is settled, that's when people who are into growth companies, if your base business is now finally recovering from this situation that happened last year or two where the margins crashed, when that gets stabilized, then that's when people can get excited about new things like robotaxi and the bot. I'm already excited about it. I know that robotaxi is coming. I know that that's going to make the stock jump. But again, you need to see, I think I think we all agree here, right? Who moves the stock? It's not retail. It's institutionals. And they play with it. I'm going to show you a clip from Jim Cramer telling you how institutional plays with the stock, and we get caught in it. So what's your thoughts about that, right? It's institutional, so you have to think like they do, not like retail.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. It's easy to say that, but in most companies, but when retail owns such a big part of Tesla, like I would argue 2022 was heavily moved by retail investors getting margin called. Like that's moving the stock. So I also can see the opposite happen where a lot of retail investors pile in. So just saying, like, it's a nuanced point, but with Tesla specifically, I would not underestimate the power of retail investors.
That's a very good point. What do you think, Xander?
I actually want to hear what Brian thinks.
Well, ask the question again, so that, because we kind of got it rambling a bit there.
Do institutions play a more significant role than retail?
So right now, I would say no, not for Tesla, because the retail investors I know are overwhelmingly ride or die. Institutionals do not adhere to that philosophy unless they are like a triple Q, where they have to hold a percentage. And even then, if the value goes up or down too much, maybe they need to rebalance. I know a lot of people with 5 shares and 5,000 shares who will not sell, not at any price. These discussions came up during the run up in 2020 when we saw when we 5x'd, 10x'd, 20x'd, and people were saying, "Nope, I'm holding. I'm just going to hold." Institutionals can play a bigger role, but they have to get in first, and that's what we're still waiting to see.
Yeah, I tend to think that having such a large retail presence kind of sets the floor, especially those that have been burned with margin calls and leaps. It went to 400, it went down to 100, and they did nothing. Those long-term diehards, do they have new cash, and are they deploying? Are they buying the dip and dollar cost averaging? Probably. So I think it's more of a floor. But now, now I think it's this transitional period where you're going to have new retail shareholders fall in love with the story, and the story has to come. Maybe 10-10. Maybe they move it to 12-12. I don't know. We'll find out, right? So as soon as that invitation goes out, that's when it's storytelling time. And if the story told is, look at the future we're building, it's like nothing you've ever seen, then then you can start believing, then you can start seeing that, oh, you know what, this company is changing the world. It is this iPhone moment, or in this case, this NVIDIA moment, where like earnings are going to be a runaway, and it's just going to come down to that. Is like, do you believe in FSD? Do you believe in robots coming to your home? That's a new paradigm shift that will happen with retail. Institutions are always going to be just spreadsheet driven and doing their discounted cash flows from the future. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say that on these past days, some of them have been very easy to understand. We're going to do stationary storage. Look, it's outside running this building right now. Nothing, no reaction. So even on things that are very easy to understand, they just don't seem to have an impact. And when it comes to something as big as robotaxi, I think people will say, wow, that's really awesome. I'm going to hold off. So I'm just desperately concerned that, just like all the other big days, they're not going to get it. And we have seen some days that turned out to be that didn't live up to the hype. Solar Roof comes to mind. But this to me is plain as day. This is coming. It's unavoidable. But I just don't think that the market is going to get it. And when it comes to people like you and I, a lot of people viewing this are already sufficiently close to all in that it's not like we have much in terms of dry powder to deploy. It's not like I can, I've got, my whole, I've got $80,000 in whatever I can sell and move it to Tesla. I just don't see a lot of the retail having that kind of flexibility.
That's why I still have the day job. Here's a prediction. Just throwing this out there for fun, okay? So people can roast me later. I don't care. 300 by October 31st.
That's what I was going to ask you guys. 300 by October
Wow.
31st.
You want me to explain
Now-
my logic?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
year?
exactly.
This year, it's
Oh,
2024.
okay. Oh, okay.
October 2nd, we
Okay.
beat expectations on delivery numbers. 1010, Robotaxi, it goes really well. Maybe new models, whatever. It goes really well. Then we have earnings. Margins look good. Everything looks good because we beat on numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We go into October 31st looking good. That's my birthday, so that's why I said that.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you dressed up for your birthday stream last year.
Yes, sir.
I remember that. That scared the crap out of half of our viewers. That was great. Good job, Nick. October 31st, $300. Okay. Anybody else
mean,
here want to make any
If we got the
guess on this?
270 before anything,
What's this?
That's the monkey throwing darts. That's Grok 2.0. That's Nick right there. He's the monkey
Money.
throwing a dart. You see, there
Monkey
we go.
throwing a dart.
yeah.
Yep.
That
That's
looks
what
pretty
it's
good.
300 guess. I would say, does that invitation exist for this guess? So you think it's not based on AI Day, or because if
Me?
that invitation, yeah, Nick.
No, I'm saying it's three compelling events that happen in October, and I'm saying
All
if we got the 270 just on getting close to 88, who's to say that you throw in great delivery numbers, 1010 outperforms, and then great earnings call? I'm just saying, like, it's not like it's
I guess,
impossible.
Nick, I'm
$30
going
more
to tell
dollars.
you that you've said this a few times today, which is, well, we got to 270 at 88 when 88 was all excitement. How come we haven't gone back? Well, how come? 1010 was already announced. So
Because
it's
we're
like,
it's easy answered, Herbert.
yeah.
We didn't run up to 270 2 months before the event, and we're 2 months before the event. It was like it was less than a month out when we started to run, so we got time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting concept.
Don't forget, August is historically a bottoming month. It is one of the worst months, especially in an election year. So this pullback that you saw is, it affects Tesla. It affects all the stocks. So you saw that drop. That was healthy, natural. Now the question for everyone on the sidelines waiting to pick a direction, was that the bottom? And that's a question that looks like that was, but you won't know, right? Because we're monkeys throwing darts.
I'm looking at the chart right now. 7/1 is the day we broke out. So literally the month before. So if that theory played out, we would start to break out around early September. Just plain magic out here. That's all.
Well, actually, since we brought up the chart, go look at June. Remember, I was describing this 200 to 180 drop. That large candle is the same thing that you see on trading inside that candle on June 17th.
What candle?
Okay.
The daily?
Yeah, the daily chart. Look at June 17th. And so we're trading in this range. And then we have a bunch of inside candles. And then on June 26th, you had the breakout. In terms of technicals, and this is pure financial astrology, don't think that I know which way it's going. But if you do have this event driven thing, didn't we have Elon's comp package confirmed at the end of June? Right.
That was the thing.
So that was the thing.
That was the thing. Elon's comp package was kept the stock flat and then down for so long because what is a massive impact to the company. When that was kind of relieved, people felt comfortable investing back in Tesla again. You see a little pop. This point,
big pop.
It's just following along with the economy. We're not really going to jump until. So let me ask this question, I guess. 1010 happens. You think it's going to be a catalyst. What needs to be shown on 1010 for it to be a catalyst? If they just showed, here's what a robotaxi design vehicle is going to look like. This vehicle, we projected it's going to be by a year and a half from now. That's when it'll be produced. This is the program. Here's the app. Let me show you a demo of it picking me up. That ain't going to be enough. If it's, we've got 2 new vehicles. Here's what they look like. That still won't be enough. What
So-
do you think will be enough?
My answer would be a path to revenue. Is it obvious how this is going? Are reservations open? Are they coming in? Those could do something, but without a path to revenue, it's like all the AI we see. There's so much beautiful, amazing AI out there, but if you don't have a way to market it, it's not, I mean, what's the value?
Monetize it. Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, he said that he sees unsupervised by the end of this year, which makes me think we could have the robotaxi network up and running by the end of this year, early next year. So I think anything that hints along those lines, we'll go ahead.
Did he add a caveat that said worst case next year?
Yeah,
Because I've had people in my comments telling me I did an analysis of the math behind adding your own vehicles to the robotaxi network, and I had one comment saying, "You're forgetting this is all going to be completely solved level 5 in 6 months." And I said, "Oh, you sound like me 3 years ago."
Yeah. And it's not beat up Nick Day. Like I think of probabilities. I learned that from Emmett Peppers. What probability that we head to 300 if you have the energy piece in the P&D report shows that's really lots of sales there, and that's growing. It's very possible that you get up there, but you really need this macro support, and then what is the reaction before the event? That's going to be one thing, but then after the event, historically we see buy the rumor, sell the news. But then there's a few times like 2019 when you had earnings actually turn positive and the market bought that up like crazy. So those moments can happen, and if the excitement is there, right, the story is bought on what's painted on that day, it can move the market. There is a probability there that says that you will not sell off and we're off to the races, and we run straight to 400. It's possible, right? So I like to look at the options market and look at these contracts and look at the fluctuating prices, because there's if there's a bias where puts cost more than calls for the same move away from the current price, then that shows you that there's a bias there. I learned that from Yashu. Shout out to Yashu. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think a lot of people have gotten tired of being optimistic on a lot of this stuff. I mean, honestly, I hear it all the time from YouTubers in general, and I get it. It's hard to always come on here and be optimistic and be wrong over and over and over again. Welcome to Kathy Wood's life, right? Welcome to the crap that Elon gets. But don't forget, like, this is Herbert. It wasn't long ago where we were sitting there at like 115, and you're the one trying to tell everybody we came down this fast. We can easily get to 300 this fast. No reason we can't.
Yep.
I would say the same logic applies, except now we actually have real things. But listen, when that happened, we didn't have version 12. We didn't have hands-free FSD. We didn't have a robotaxi event coming up. We didn't have Elon saying unsupervised by the end of this year, this close in time range. Right? We didn't have any of that. We didn't have the supercomputer, what's called Cortex. None of this was a thing. Even then, AI wasn't really a thing. People were just discovering ChatGPT for the first time. So we've come a long way, and I would say the company's stronger than ever. Competition's non-existent at this point. Rates are about to come down. We're going into the fourth quarter, the best quarter of the year for the stock market in general and autos. And I would say that things are looking really good with FSD as far as I can tell my own experience. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit of loss of optimism out there that people need to regain. Like it's okay to be wrong if you're optimistic. It's fine. Like, look, we're all investing for the long term. So it's really doesn't matter. It's just whether or not you think it's going to happen or not. And I prefer to bias more on the optimistic side. I see it. I see a clear path. Now, it might be another 4 or 5 years. It's all right. But I see what I see right now. And all I can do is make my best predictions on that. Now, I will say, if you're listening, I would say there's lots of crumbs to follow. For example, not this past earnings before the earnings before that, we had our mega stream. And out of everybody, I was the only one that said that I think the stock's
right.
going to be up after. And I
You
said,
did.
because I
Yeah.
think all their questions are going to be around AI and FSD.
Yeah.
Sure enough, that was the first conference call where the analysts didn't ask about margins. They didn't ask about delivery numbers. They only cared about AI, FSD, robotaxi, things like that. And you saw that again on this last earnings call, that was really the focus of what they were asking. That to me says the paradigm has shifted. We are in a different place now. This means institutional investors are looking at this company differently. Now, when does this happen? When does it start materialize? I don't know. But what I do know is the questions they're asking, the way they're looking at the company is substantially different than what it was this time last year.
Okay, that is absolutely true, Nick. I was in that mega stream with you. There was at least 7 or 8 people. I asked the question, who here thinks what's going to happen at the end of this earnings call? You were the only one that said the stock was going to go up. Everybody said it was going to fall. You were correct there. And you're absolutely correct as well that, that if stock can fall, if there's nothing that caused it to fall, like no fundamental, structural issue, then it can rise just as fast. That I get, that is a good reminder for me, because that was my philosophy, and you're correct. And then I have been following the questions that analysts have been asking at every single one of Tesla's earnings call. And you were right. January of last year, 3 people started talking about energy. The following earnings, 3 analysts started talking about, FSD or robotaxi. And then, they are following along to the narrative that we retail investors are ahead of them. But it's not like they're still stuck that they were a year ago on just auto. In fact, was it Morgan Stanley? Adam Jonas has a lunch with a bunch of institutional analysts, and he was struck that after an hour and a half lunch, not a single one of them talked about auto. And he said that's the first time that has ever happened. So you're correct. Institutional analysts are absolutely changing their mind. That's very interesting. The reason I say what I'm saying too, though, is I did take a look at the history, and I know that you shouldn't necessarily look backwards, but if I looked at all the milestones Tesla's ever had, and you look at what happened to the stock and you overlay it, the only times that Tesla stock actually skyrocket, not just 10% flips and fluctuation, talking like structurally change in the stock market for Tesla, where it goes up and stays up and starts to go really steeply up. It's almost always after an earnings call, where a surprise of a new vehicle that was launched that then started showing ramp up. And then it starts skyrocketing as that ramp of that new vehicle brings in new revenue and earnings. And now they start calculating margins and forward. That's why I don't see product demos. Having said that, this is the one product demo that I agree with you is very different from any other product demo Tesla's ever made. This is the very first time that Tesla's basically coming in and telling you our entire business is about to change. Like he calls it a new book, but it's like we're no longer selling widgets, cars. We are here completely going to capture the entire auto market, because if you don't have autonomy, you're dead. And we're now going to be a subscription model. And this is how this program works. Like it's a complete leap. Like we are now an AI company. We're a robot AI company. We're no longer a car manufacturer. If they pull this off and they show a fantastic presentation that is not only, that's why it can't just be a presentation though. Like you can't just let me show you the app and let me show. It's got to be like you said, where we are launching this. I don't know what the number I put in, within 6 months. If it's like a year or longer, people go, yeah, okay, cool, future. But if it's like within 6 months, maybe they'll go, oh my God, this is real. Maybe.
Can I just clarify? I don't think it needs to be, it launches in 6 months. I think would be more impactful if they said, we are planning to roll out beta tests of the robotaxi network in Austin, in Tampa Bay, in San Francisco. That I think would move.
Why would that move it? I mean, people will just say, the institutional analysts will say, Cruise is doing that now. Waymo's already expanding. By the way, Waymo's now doing highways. How's that different, right?
Because we go for, you have to start in a beta somewhere. You have to.
Mhm.
You don't know what you don't know. But the reason is once you iron that out, you scale immediately. That's why. And nobody's not aware of that.
So I'm going to
Right.
agree with Nick on this one. I think if they were to say, look, we're starting in here, that would move it. One thing that could drive the stock is on the earnings call to find out what we're getting now in terms of subscription revenue. Wall Street loves recurring revenue. And if the subscription model is doing the trick, you could see a path to selling with a lower margin and getting more money over time. I haven't seen that yet. I think it's likely to come. And anything in terms of that, I think could move it.
So, Nick, I think for your estimate to happen, there needs to be a tsunami of positive things happening. Everything has to go right. And the one that has to go right is FSD. So if 12.5 comes out, it's widely released to Model 3s, and then everybody starts, which we're already seeing, right? Us retail investors are seeing these videos are fantastic. But
Do-
if it's
do you
like a
guys have-
huge leap, yeah,
Do you guys have 12.5?
I do not.
Okay, so
'Cause
Brian, you
I've-
do.
I have
I've
12.513.
Okay, yeah, same. I don't think that one's going to go wide for sure. To me, it's very apparent they're playing around with map data. It's beyond clear that they're messing with map data. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but they're doing something with maps. It's what you see on the screen is not what's actually happening, at least in
Right.
my case.
Yeah.
Not always, but a lot of the times.
I'll tell you with the switch to 12.5, it no longer knows where my driveway is, and it tries to direct me and any of my visitors using FSD to the alley. And then one time I let it loop me twice through the alley. I'm like, okay, well, I got to go home now. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's
I think
bizarre.
they're working either on doing a cutover, I think, and they're slowly trying to get their own maps figured out, or there's like this layered approach where they have Google Maps and they're trying to fill in the gaps here. I don't know what exactly is happening, but there's definitely something happening because it had me. I was coming home and I was on a new highway that had new signage, new off ramps, everything. And the map thought I was on the back road because this highway didn't exist anymore. But the car was sitting there doing everything right. And I'm sitting there myself looking at the signs like, okay, oh, that's to go south. Okay, we need to go. And the car's just taking it, ignoring what the map data is saying. Like it's done this a couple times, it's doing it a lot now.
I've gone through some pretty crazy construction zones with amazing success on 12.5. And have not had any freakouts on 12.3.6. I did have one where it diverted to the oncoming lane where it's now divided for work on the other side, and it let me go for a good mile before it just said, "Oh my gosh, take control. I don't even know where we are anymore." But on 12.5, it is done very well.
So I bring this up, Herbert, just to say I don't think 12.5 is that aha moment. I think it'll be like a 12.6 to 12.7. Where
That's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
12.5, they're tweaking a lot of little things that I don't think is necessarily for us, but it's more so for Robotaxi.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying that by 10.10, we need to see new versions that then just shock everybody. If you think that 10.10 is going to be the thing that moves it, when in reality, it's probably not going to move it. And then it'll be somewhere, when people start seeing more trajectory of safety and interventions. Yeah.
Here's the thing. You're not going to see an improvement at this point when it comes to that because it's so far in between. Like it just is. Like there just is not much. Like if you take over, it's probably because of comfort or because like Brian says, like, well, you're in the back alley, not in the front. Like it's like stupid little things like that. I think anything meaningful in a new version will be more like things we add, like, oh, we can reverse. Oh, to your point, summon, banish. Those will be the things that I think will be big differences. Everything else it'll almost not even be noticeable, I think.
I think being on the alley instead of the street is, yes, no big deal at all. But you need to recognize the no right turn on red sign. You need to pull over for flashing lights. Those are the big ones I think I would agree are a little more pressing.
Sorry to get off your point, Herbert.
No, that's a lot of good things must happen for this stock to break through. Now, the question is, like you're saying, $300, we were there already. We were there just July, right? So less than a year ago, we were there. So it's not that part to get to 300. I mean, to break past 414 and really go up, that's where the big move is going to happen. So I'm saying, see, what I'm saying is that I don't think it's going to necessarily get to 300 by the end of this year, but I am saying that by the first quarter of next year, it could burst through the all-time highs.
What would change for you in those 2 months?
Well, I said the more affordable vehicles have to come in. You have to, so just the 50% growth again, which they announced at the last shareholder meeting. If there's more signals that that's actually going to happen, we're back to 50% growth. Tesla said that they're going to create not only production capacity, but production of 50% growth in their vehicles by next year. And so if that actually seeps into people's minds that that's actually going to happen. And how does that happen? Well, that's because of the affordable vehicles that they're about to launch. And if that all comes together, then just that alone should get us to $300. And then the skyrocketing past the 300 to all-time highs is full self-driving. That is going to be so much more clear by that point.
Herbert, you said leap multiple times, and it
You got a problem, Xander.
it's in the title right there, the options. Well, I think everything that I'm saying is, don't get it twisted. I'm not super short term on my long term portfolio, and as I mentioned, like I've been burned by. I have a nice article on my profile that you can go and read. I've been burned with 6 figures buying leaps and hoping that it's gonna go to the moon. It's my fault, but I know that retail investors are waiting, like myself, to undo that damage and are looking for that signal to try it again. Nothing crazy, 5 to 10% of your portfolio to juice the returns on the move. Some people should stay away from options. It's not for you. You could lose money, but that's what I'm looking for. Everything I stated earlier, I'm looking for, all the green flags, and really what I'm training for is that move like Emmett Peppers pulled off in the S&P 500 inclusion trade. What happens when Tesla switches from consumer discretionary into a tech? Once that bucket changes, as Alexandra, a Tesla boomer mama, has pointed out, once that occurs, is it 26? Is it 27? Is it 25? We just don't know. But if you're going to gamble on the long term, at some point the market's going to get moving, and then that train is going to accelerate. And so I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that acceleration away from this like 200-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, the golden cross, the uninversion of those two, right? All of these things. If you zoom out and you look at that multi-year trend line, when we broke out on this last move from the 180s, we broke through. At that time, it was at 225 or so, and we went to 271. Now we dipped below that again, which is the healthy way to do it. It's going to come back in, but that's it. That trend line is dead. You're no longer really dictated. The stock price movement, if you're going to look at the technicals, isn't going to look at that anymore. It's going to look at, all right, zoom in, and what does that look like? So a nice pullback into the 180s, 190s is very, very healthy. It makes sense. It's a opportunity for investors to recontemplate, was that move to 270 justified? What caused that, right? We can speculate. Nobody knows why we're selling off. And so once for me, once we start re-breaking out these 225s, these 230s, we go to 250, what does it look like? Is there a long period of time where you have the sideways movement? Because again, zoom out, look at the weekly chart. And what does that look like? We're trading in a giant band. Look at a monthly chart. Zoom out. Where are we trading? Have we broken through this wedged in area of the 400 to 100? What does that look like? And then once that confirms for me, that's when I start, getting a little excited and start throwing the darts a little further. I was playing those Januaries. I was playing 1 year out. Now, nothing. I'm not buying any calls. I'm just sitting here doing absolutely nothing. Just selling covered calls here and there, maybe selling some puts. But really, really, let the price action and let that dictate. Don't predict, but react. That's been the success story for me for options trading. But also, as Nick stated, zoom out and look at what's coming. And if you believe Elon and you believe that we're writing a brand new book here, it looks beautiful. It looks like I want to read that book. So I'm positioning myself for that up move, raising cash, and then if we have a down move, that's when I'll deploy. I personally, I'd love a pullback down to 180 right now. Again, that would be, I wouldn't spend all of it, but a good 25, 50% of the cash I just raised would get deployed, and then just dollar cost average as usual. But not financial advice. I'm a monkey throwing darts. Remember that.
I would just add, I also think you got to keep in mind, it's been 2 years of a really bad economy, rates going up and everything. We are just now about to start unwinding that. It's just about to start. So it's been we will have good times again. We will have a true bull market again. It's bound to happen. When, I don't know, but it will eventually happen. And, sometimes the fun days, the fun times are so much easier to live in, and they just go by so fast. But the tough years, the tough months, the tough quarters, those are the ones that, man, they test you and they grind on you and they make you question. And you sit there and other people come at you and they say to you, oh, this is never going to happen. Oh, Elon said this. Oh, you're wasting your money. All this stuff. That happens. But the good times will come again. I just want to remind you of that. Or
I
everybody.
did want to jump in real quick and say a thank you to Herbert for putting these live streams together, bringing these amazing guests together. I had the amazing opportunity to meet Xander in person recently at the X Takeover. Herbert was
Likewise.
also there. Nick might be AI. We will find out in the future. And guys, if you enjoy these, hit the likes, the thumbs up so that others will find it. YouTube and X appreciate those likes and shares and all that to actually get the word out. And this is fun.
Thanks,
I enjoy
Brian.
doing this every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Okay, well, I'm going to just add one more thing. Nick, I can see that 1010 could be a jump for the stock, and what you have laid out could happen. But my caveat is that on 1010, maybe they need to show a partnership. If they said that this large OEM is going to commit to making over 1 million cars, that's going to be robotaxi licensing Tesla's FSD and it's going to be part of the robotaxi network. That's enough, I believe, because it's a confirmation from, another third party that Tesla's plan is going to be real. They're putting their bucks in it too. And then once you hear one, there'll be multiple that's going to be lined up. We're off to the races even before an actual, pilot is launched with real dollars being spent on a transaction fee. That I was asking earlier, what needs to happen on 1010 for this to shock? That could be one example. If they were just revealing products and they were just revealing programs, maybe not enough. It's got to be something like that.
Maybe Warren Buffett comes out on stage and says he's going to take a big stake. You never know. Anything can happen. Excitement sure to follow.
I need to hang with you on 1010, dude.
Omaha is famous
together.
for their steaks, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Thank you guys both. And Xander, thank you for joining us. Folks, if you haven't known about Xander Sky, he's the options bull. He's been knocking out of the park. I'm not somebody who, really follows technical strategies very often, but Xander seems to have figured out something. He's been calling it correctly. Again, monkeys throwing darts. We're not saying that he somehow has solved the universe, but he seems to be somebody I trust. I should be trusting in terms of, just a little bit more, right? Yeah, I take everything. Fundamentals is my primary thing. We're all long-term here, including Xander. He's a very long-term investor, but he plays with a small bit of his portfolio. So follow him on X at RSXAlex. Thanks, everybody. See you
Thanks,
next
guys.
week.
That was fun.
Yep.
Cheers.